This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
June is a month with a lot of celebrations, graduations, weddings, other happy events, but there are some other gatherings that raise some serious red flags for teens, parents, and society as a whole. Welcome back to another edition of Real Answers. It's a regular Wednesday feature during the Family Life News Report, where we discuss the issues that matter to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Welcome back, Chris.
Great to be here, Mark.
Always great to have you here. One of the things we're focusing on today are what are popularly known as pop-up parties. Sounds nice enough, but apparently not so much.
Tell you what, like you said at the top of the segment here, Mark, this is the time of year to be on the lookout for them, especially if you're a landowner who's renting or families who've got graduating teens or, rising seniors, because this could be a real problem.
We've seen some scary videos, just mob scenes, scary stuff, and a little bit symptomatic, I think, of some deeper societal issues as well, right?
No, absolutely. And kind of what we're talking about here in terms of a pop-up party, this is where somebody may rent somebody else's property through a third party. And there's these rental agencies now that you can list your own property through these agencies, and then they match you with renters. Well, what's becoming more and more of a problem is that people are renting these without any regard for limits on the number of people, and they have a party and then they charge admission and this type of thing. And a lot of times it's folks, again, they have very little regard for the property owners themselves or the facilities, because they know that in order to be part of these rental agencies, they have to carry insurance. And so they just assume in their own mind, hey, guess what? The insurance will cover any damage we do, so let's just throw a blowout party. And in a lot of cases, these people who do the renting, they not only recoup their own expenses by charging for folks to come to these parties, but they then make money on this as well. And it's a real problem because then things are destroyed or damaged beyond repair.
Yeah, some crazy scenes you can see online about this sort of thing. And it brings up a bigger issue, and one label that's been put on that is moral hazards. There's an example given by popular Christian author and speaker Chuck Holton, and it's an economic one, actually, where people take unreasonable risks when they're playing with somebody else's money. He cites the example of renting a car and driving it in a risky fashion because, well, the insurance will take care of any damage and no problem for me or even the car company, but that's not really the case.
It's not, and it's kind of an example of a societal enabling, if you will. We're enabling people to not be responsible or enabling people to take advantage and just place all the financial burden on either insurance companies or landowners, if it's a property. And you did mention Chuck, and he did have recently a situation on his own property that he rented out, where he rented his property to folks. And again, it ended up becoming a wild, crazy party. Parents may or may not have known that these teens were going to descend on this particular location. And it's not just private properties. These parties, these pop-up parties can happen in public areas as well, with little regard for the property or the communities in which these parties take place. And, you mentioned moral hazard. And again, this is just a common umbrella term where we're talking about people are aware of the risk or of the potential for financial burdens, and they know it's going to be put off on somebody else. So all that does is increase the possibility that people who are engaging in these parties are not going to go out of their way to take care of the property or the facilities. And it's just becoming a real problem in our society, especially with the younger crowds.
Right. You're listening to Real Answers. I'm Mark Webster, along with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson, talking about moral hazards. And we've seen shoplifting mobs, taking over stores with no regard or care, it seems, for any consequences. And like all human failings, eventually boils down to a spiritual issue.
Oh, absolutely. And we know the farther we get away as a society from Judeo-Christian values and where we have at least a shared sense of responsibility for our communities, then the more likely these types of things are to take place. And of course, the next question, not to jump ahead of you, Mark, is what do we do about it?
That was my next question.
And how bad it was. And, if you're a parent with teenagers or soon-to-be teenagers, be aware that this is happening. Set the expectation for your children right away, as well as lay out some consequences if your children are involved in these types of pop-up parties or other moral hazards, like you mentioned, smash and grab type robberies and burglaries of stores. Make sure they're aware of what's going to happen. You have to be really clear to your kids. And of course, as you can start real early in teaching your children the moral responsibility towards not only your family, families, but also their communities. They're preparing them ahead of time to make better decisions the older they get. But it's never too late to start. We'll just put that out there too. If you feel like as a parent you could have done more, well, hey, listen, the past is in the past. You start right now. Start communicating with your teens. Make sure you're aware of what you can do of implementing some serious consequences if in fact your children are involved in any of these pop-up parties. Be direct with them. Let your children know that you're aware of this, that you're on to this type of a gathering. If your children are involved in any of these types of parties or gatherings, you let them know what they're going to do to help make restitution if they need to.
Yeah, and don't shield them from the consequences either. Eventually they have to learn that lesson that we all do, that the world doesn't revolve around you, and don't do the crime unless you can do the time.
And that is a very good point that you make. We're seeing parents nowadays falsely assuming that their children couldn't possibly be involved in things like this. Well, if you ask any public school teacher who's good at their job, they'll say one of their biggest challenges these days is dealing with parents who refuse to believe that their children can misbehave. Don't be one of those parents. Even if you feel like you're one of the best parents, your children have the capacity to make poor choices. You need to just be aware of some of these things that your kids are engaging in these days. Be clear, communicate directly, and let them know what their consequences are going to be if they're partaking in these types of activities.
Oh, excellent advice, Chris. You've been listening to Real Answers, a Wednesday feature of the Family Life Noon Report, where we discuss the issues important to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Thanks as always, Chris.
Great, Mark. We'll see you.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.